guess Mark Milliken is lined up to do this on the 31st in the Bells play. Right, yeah. Yeah, and I got John Shearland doing the camera, so I won't have to run back and forth with you. Yeah. Too bad we don't have remote control down there.
That's what we'll do. I intend to, I'll make a motion, and then we'll go ahead, go through the slides, the first two, and then these two slides. Okay.
Some cookies. supposed to start?
Oh, like a few minutes ago. Just go ahead.
Good morning, friends. It's good to see you all this morning. Good to be in worship. I had a really good drive over from Lander and made it. I was a couple minutes late, I'll be honest, but trying to keep my speed under control, but made it for worship. Enjoy being a part of worship this morning. My name is Mark Calhoun. I live in Lander, and I'm the district superintendent for the Wyoming district. And that role for me started a year and a couple of months ago, so I'm still pretty new at this. Your faces, many of you look familiar. We've had opportunities to be here and to participate in worship and other meetings over the past year, so it's a blessing to be with you all and welcome you here this morning. What we're holding this morning is a church conference. It's a special called church conference. We'll have another opportunity coming up real shortly to gather for our annual church conference to tend to some other items of the church. But for today, we've called a special church conference regarding the sale of a piece of property, an asset of the church. And so that's why we're here this morning. And so thank you for advertising that and letting folks know that we're gathering in this way today. So we're going to have a presentation. We'll hear the details around the sale of the building, the King's Corner building, and then ultimately church conference will require, this action requires a vote, and so we'll be voting. I want to take the temperature of the room. Are you all comfortable voting by raising hands, or would you prefer to write it down on a piece of paper? Raise your hands if you're okay raising your hands. Okay, I think we'll try it that way if everyone's comfortable with that. So we'll plan to do that after we've had an opportunity to hear more of the details and obviously a time to answer or ask questions and have those questions answered.
Good morning. I'm John Sherlin. I think most of you know that I'm the chairman of the Board of Trustees. And we've been marketing both the Durbin Center and King's Corner. We did previously get an offer for both properties that we have rejected from the Board of Trustees. And since that time, we have received an offer from a company named PNR Investments LLC. And to begin this, I'm going to make a motion that we accept an offer of $615,000 from PNR Investments LLC to sell King's Corner. Now the questions may begin. Okay, as you can see on the screen, these are some of the details around what we've been offered. The $615,000, so far we've gotten $2,500 in earnest money. They're proposing a $492,000 commercial loan, which we have already received or I should say RE/MAX, our broker, Bill Lyons, has already received a pre-qualification letter for that $492,000, and they intend to finish off the deal with $120,500 in cash. And the closing date for that transaction is proposed as 11/30 of 2021, and that would include a realtor fee of 6%. So, and other closing costs, I'm sure, are going to be yet to be determined. I'm sure there'll be some negotiations that'll take place if we in fact approve this motion. Any questions?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Simon Peter. I just have a question. How much was the building purchased for? How much is still owed? Like, is this a good deal? Just curious about some of the other numbers.
I do not know the value on the...
Excuse me.
Thank you, Randy.
I was on the board then, and few others in here were too, but we got it for $102,000, and everybody thought we were crazy back then getting it. So anyway, I think that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't currently owe any money against this property. We have spent some money. We've spent some fairly significant dollars on here about 2 years ago, replacing the roof, and I believe it was somewhere around $68,000 to put a new membrane roof on that building. So we have, over the years, made some improvements to it, and you know, the roof is now basically brand new. So that's been without doubt our biggest expenditure on it within the last 10 years or so. And we have made some upgrades to the kitchen and a few other things, but for the most part, you know, that's where we are right now.
What did they plan to use the property for?
I believe they're going to use it for their office, for home, the company that is called Home Real Estate, and I believe they're going to use that for their primary office, for office space. Yes, right there.
Current market value for that property?
Well, we were thinking somewhere around 300, but our last offer from a gentleman here in Casper put the value at around, he valued it at $300,000. Our real estate agent figured it was closer to 600. Bill Lyons estimated that it was around $600,000. So it's pretty close to what he had estimated the value at.
I was on the board with Randy when we bought it, and the purpose of buying it was mainly for parking. What is going to happen with the parking around that building if we sell it?
They are not going to get any of our parking space. That is not part of the deal. I'm not, that's correct, right, Dave? Yes. That's what Bill Lyons said. They are not going to get any of this parking lot over here. This is going to stay attached to the Durbin Center.
So the parking is all associated with the Durbin Center, and for right now. And there we go. And so the parking is associated with the Durbin Center, and it is not part of this. They apparently worked out something with the people across the street. There's a couple parking lots over there. And I believe they indicated they needed like 32 spaces, and so they will be using the parking lot across the street, and that won't affect our parking in the Durbin Center at all.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
What happens to all the contents inside, like the freezers, the refrigerators, and all the stuff we used when we were cooking down there? And the Sunday school classes would like some of the stuff out of there. Are we going to be taking that out, or does it go with the building?
I don't believe we're going to be taking out any of the, those are things that would still have to be determined whether or not we're going to get any of that equipment. They may not want it. Question is will we have to compensate for them for that? And that's going to be, you know, part of the to be determined. And if our sale price is significantly less than what we're proposing here today, I don't see how we'll be able to do this without convening another church conference. I don't think we're going to have that kind of latitude as far as the trustees being able to negotiate that significantly lower if we were to take that equipment out of there. Okay?
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Oh, Marvin.
It's not a question. I just wanted to second your motion.
Thanks, Marvin. That's probably a pretty pretty pertinent thing to do. So.
And just to be clear, Dave Kroenke is taking the minutes for this meeting. He's our secretary.
So it has to be done for property, the
the purchase price has to go to property improvements. Is there a list that the trustees have, or is that something that we will decide as a
You want to go ahead
congregation?
and roll that up right now, Lester? Thank you. Yeah. This is what we've currently got scheduled for the funds that we would be receiving from this sale. The first thing we're going to do, we've got $25,000 committed from Endowment for the Asbury roof. It's going to be closer to $70,000 to completely do that, and we're hoping we can raise some of it from the congregation, but we're estimating that we'll probably have to dedicate about $30,000 of this to the Asbury roof, which is in dire need of replacement. We have to do that at some point here in the next, well, we've got it already scheduled. We're doing it. It's just going to be how are we going to pay for it. So we've got Dave Loden Construction out of Buffalo, set up to do that. And we're going to continue on with that. Either way, that number could vary either direction depending on what we get from the congregation as far as commitments. And
So with other projects that are going to come about, is that the trustees' doings, or does the church congregation have a say in that?
that's pretty much at the purview of the trustees as far as people can bring things to us, but as the trustees, that's our duty to decide whether or not we want to continue with those projects. We don't have that latitude with selling property. The congregation has to, that's why we're here today, is the congregation has to do that. But when it comes to how we allocate that money, we'll certainly take input from the congregation. We're not, you know, even though I sometimes feel like I'm a despot of a banana republic because I've named myself essentially chairman for life of Board of Trustees, which but I'm not going to steamroll everybody. If people have an opinion, I will be happy to hear it. And if you want to come before the trustees, we meet at 5:30 on every third Thursday in the parlor. And, you know, we don't want to feel like, you know, we're going to cram anything down anybody's throat as far as what's happening here. So, okay? But the next thing we're going to do is, the Tate Building Fund is right now at about $100,000, maybe a little more, and we've committed to keeping $100,000 in that for emergency repairs, and we don't want to go below that. So the fact that it is invested in the stock market, which is partly in the balance fund, it's in the balance fund, which is partly stocks, partly bonds. We're going to allocate another $15,000 to the Tate Fund to make sure that we don't drop below that $100,000 mark should we have some sort of a market correction. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the rest of the remaining funds, we've created what's called the Legacy Building Fund, and the remaining funds will be invested in that Legacy Building Fund, and the investment allocation will actually be through what they've renamed it to Methodists Helping Methodists Balanced Fund. We're going to continue on that. So we'll have two separate funds. One will be the Tate, which will be for emergencies, and the other will be the Legacy Building Fund, which we'll use earnings from that to make improvements to the church properties. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thanks everyone for the questions. Thanks for the second, an important part that I missed right over, so thanks for catching that. So one last opportunity. Do you all have any other questions? You feel like you've had enough information offered to you when we hold a church conference? A couple distinctions between a church conference and a charge conference. The elected officers of the church are known as charge conference officers. When we call something along the lines of a charge conference, that means that just those elected charge conference officers have voice and vote. When we call a church conference, which is my preference, it opens up who can be a part of the dialogue and the conversation, primarily to professing professing members of the church. In my practice of ministry, I opened it up to constituents and folks who had a vested interest in the life of the church and demonstrated that through their participation. And so that's what we've called for this morning, a church conference to allow to open that up, voice and vote. So that is where we're at. Final opportunity. All right. And give us just a minute as we come into a vote. Yes, sir.
Is there a drawing of how much that property is going? Is there any more than just the building and the north parking lot, or does it come on farther south?
We do not own the north parking lot.
Hilltop Bank owns the north.
Hilltop Bank owns that on the north side of the building. Yeah, that's one thing that we do still have. We do still have inspections and that sort of thing that have to be done because we really couldn't proceed with it until we get approval to sell it. So,
I'm Ronna Borrell. Bob, I may still have drawings of that, but you may remember a long time ago we had to park in the streets in the lots across the street by the old furniture store, and we swapped that out. We had the lot north. We swapped that. We swapped 2 lots right out here behind the church and the lots across the street. We did a big exchange so that the Kirkwoods and we blocked up everything. To answer your question, there is about 10 or 12 feet, I don't remember exactly, on the north side of King's Corner that should go, it's part of that lot, and I haven't seen the documents, but it should be in the legal description. And that's where Jim Potter had that shed that had stuff in it. And that, to my recollection, is part of the legal description. No, not the parking. It's just a few feet north of the brick wall where that old storage shed sat. I think that's ours. And Hilltop Bank always wanted us to remove that. But in any event, the legal description on the south side is pretty close to the building wall, but that should be checked. That should be checked. And on the north side, I'm remembering 10 or 12 feet. But that should be checked too, because that's my memory.
So I'm Dana Duell, and I am just speaking in support of what Ronna. Test. Maybe I can just use the other one.
it shows it's off.
So I'm Dana Duell. Now we'll have the yellow, orange one on, please. Orange. I'm Dana Duell. There we go. I'm Dana Duell. I'm just speaking in support of what Ronna has described here. That is my recollection as well. There will be a document prepared to say what we own as title, so we'll check those things to make sure.
Yes. Things have problems. I think it's all having problems. We got one more question in the back. I'm pretty good at yelling.
Be calm, please.
All right. Good to go.
One still. Okay, thanks. All right, call for the question. We'll have the motion read. We've had it seconded, and then we'll take the vote. This is pending after this approval, then things get set into motion as far as inspections, surveys, things of that nature. So that will all happen after this point, prior to the closing date, and anything that is found in the inspection or with the survey just needs to come before the congregation and be available to the congregation. Okay, the motion?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the proposal of $615,000 from PNR for the purchase of the King's Corner. Marvin Nolte has seconded that motion.
And it's been seconded. If you would affirm the sale of King's Corner, please raise your hand and keep your hand up for a minute. And any opposed? And anyone in the room with an abstention? All right, seeing no opposition and no abstentions, it's been approved to move forward with the sale of King's Corner. All right, thank you all for being with us. Before we depart, we'll have Nancy, will you offer a prayer over past, present, future ministry of that space, sacred space?
All right, let us pray. Gracious and loving God, you are our God and King, and for many years we have served you through the property on the corner of First Street and Beach. Now that property is being sold, Lord. Thank you for all who have served there, who were served there, and we now look forward to making room for something new, to help this building be your home, a place to belong. And we thank you for all the gifts that you give us, especially your Son, in whose holy name we all say, Amen.